Hello, friends. Today I would like to talk with you about a subject that is dear to my heart and something I've been thinking about, even subconsciously, since I was 12 years old. One day, my mother asked me to go and get my dad and tell him it was time for supper. So I went upstairs to his study and tapped on the door and said, "Daddy, Mom says we have to come for supper." And first I went in, and he pulled me onto his lap and showed me what he was studying. Above his desk on the wall was a chart, a timeline that said the kings of Judah and Israel. I said, "Dad, what's that? Why are there two timelines up there? I thought they were all Jews. Why would there be two?" And he said, "Well, they were all together as one kingdom to start with, under King Saul and then King David and then Solomon, his son. But under Solomon's son, the kingdom split. And that's a story in itself. But when the kingdom split, that meant that 10 of the tribes stayed in the north where they lived, and 2 of the tribes, being Judah and Benjamin, were in the south. This is where the temple was located, and some Levites moved there too. The reason for the split was the northern kingdom was upset about the taxation, but they went ahead and set up their own kingdom with their own king, not from the tribe of Judah, which is what the Davidic monarchies were to be. And they rebelled against that and set up a king named Jeroboam, who was from the tribe of Ephraim, one of the other 10 tribes. Altogether, there were 12 tribes. These were the sons of Jacob. God had asked Jacob and his father before him, Isaac, and his father before him, Abraham, to follow him, and he would make them famous. And they would have many descendants, and their descendants would be, these innumerable number of descendants, would be a blessing to the world. Also, he would give them some real estate in the Middle East that was theirs forever. So this is a strange beginning to a religion, isn't it? But it's how it happened. And so when this man Jeroboam set up the kingdom in the north with himself as king, he instituted a new calendar system, new worship system, and new worship centers. Not Jerusalem. In fact, he didn't want the people going down there at all in case they decided to stay. So he set up a golden calf, in 2 locations in the north for the people to worship up there. Well, obviously, that was not pleasing to Jehovah, and the golden calf had always been a problem for them. And ultimately, after many prophets went to them and told them to repent and change their ways, God sent the Assyrians to carry them off into captivity in the biggest deportation there'd ever been in history, I think. They were all gone. So that's what made this distinction between the tribes or the kingdom of Judah and the kingdom of Joseph or Israel in the north. The reason I say Joseph is because the main tribe in the north was one of Joseph's sons, Ephraim. He had 2 boys, Ephraim and Manasseh. So these people were deported by these fierce Assyrian people, and off they went to Assyria. Now, when my dad was telling me this, he said they are now called the Lost 10 Tribes. And I said, "Daddy, how can that be? How can God lose 10 of his tribes? It doesn't seem right, because God called all 12 of them to be his chosen people, and he wouldn't surely have lost 10 of his tribes." I couldn't imagine God wringing his hands and wondering what happened to most of his chosen people. So they also came out of Egypt. They all came to the mountain Sinai and got the Ten Commandments. So how could they just be lost? I was convinced that God would not have just been befuddled and confused and lost his tribes, and I determined that I was going to find them. Well, many years went by, and I never did do anything with it until my dad was getting close to dying. And one day I was visiting him, and I said, "Dad, do you remember that chart on the wall of your study? Do you think it would be okay if I took it out of the frame and took it over and got it copied?" And he said, "Oh, just take it." So by that time it was crackly and brown, but I did manage to get a copy made, and I told him, "I'm going to find out where the tribes went." And he said, "Well, then you're going to have to make a longer chart so you can tell what happened to them after the end of this chart," which ended at the Babylonian captivity for the Jews, because they were carried off in captivity also, and they came back into what we know as the Second Temple period. But the lost 10 tribes, for all intents and purposes, vanished from history, and they lost track of who they were and didn't even realize they were Israelites after all. But I'm going to tell you where they went in my next video.